my 10-minute roundup videos, I get right into the Manchester United news, right to the point. But I have just watched a phenomenal game that I just want to talk about it for 1 minute before I get into the news. And wow, Kvaratskhelia and Olise, if Man United want to sign both those players, I would be in dreamland. It was phenomenal watching quality attackers. I'm a big fan of the Premier League. I think it's the strongest league in the world. But I don't feel like we have those top level quality attackers in the Prem. I was watching PSG Bayern and I'm thinking, if I compare that to watching potential top of the league Arsenal, Arsenal don't come close. Arsenal play boring football, defensive football. Arsenal's attackers are Gyökeres, Trossard, Martinelli, Madueke. I mean, Saka's decent. And then you see this, Ousmane Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Olise, Harry Kane. And do you know what the worst part about it all is? I remember summer 2022. Now, Olise, phenomenal. For me, Ballon d'Or winner, particularly if France win the World Cup. Like, he's ridiculous. If they win the Champions League and France win the World Cup, Olise, Ballon d'Or. But, yeah. I remember summer 2022, we were chasing a right winger. We were chasing Anthony. Ten Hag was obsessed with Anthony. And I said, if Anthony goes over 50 million, we need to walk away and we need to look at other players. I said we should not be spending more than 50 million on Anthony. I said Gakpo's available for 30, 40 million in that league. And I said Olise is available for 35 million. I remember 4 years ago going, Olise, I know he's a bit young and inexperienced, but he's available for 35 million. I remember saying, particularly, I prefer Olise to Anthony. And I said that's probably because I've watched Olise more and he's in the Premier League and I'm more familiar with him. And it just makes me angry that the board at the time, Mercer Arnold, allowed Man United to go and spend 85 million on Anthony when you could have, one, got another winger in Gakpo for 30 odd million, or two, got another winger in Olise for 30 odd million. Like, we gave Ten Hag too much money. Like, don't get me wrong, we panic buyed Casemiro. Fantastic. But I just look back at it and I go, if we'd have spent 35 million on Olise instead of 85 million on Anthony, we'd have 50 million more going into next summer, which would have mean instead of 70 million on a striker and Højlund, we'd have 120 million to spend on a striker and Kane. If only we'd signed Olise instead of Anthony, we would have had the money to get Kane instead of Højlund. And look, obviously Mertens and Arnold are gone. I'd say the recruitment is better with Vivel. Still don't trust Jason Wilcox and his Delap obsession, but it just makes me look back thinking if only we got Olise, we'd have 50 million more in the bank. We could have got Harry Kane, and those two attackers could have played for us. And that's all if, buts, and maybes. I said, imagine if we got Ollie, Declan Rice. You know, it's all if, buts, and maybes. But the Champions League was fantastic today. We've got Arsenal Atletico tomorrow. That's probably going to be a 0-0 absolute snorefest. But as much as I like the Premier League, it just reminds me, like, we need some better quality attackers in the league, people. Anyway, I would love Man United to sign any of the attackers from that game. Not going to happen. But we don't need to talk about attack today. We need to talk about midfield. So I've always said there's 4 big midfield deals Man United need to do this summer. 1 is get Mainoo on a new contract agreed. 2 is find a Casemiro replacement. 3 is find a Gatti replacement. And 4 is finding someone that can play if Mainoo gets injured, compete with Mainoo, but also alongside Mainoo. Now, we know with Kobbie Mainoo, he's got a 75% win rate. For context, I think Agate's win rate is about 21%. So for me, you know, I'm really glad that, you know, Kobbie is staying. You know, there was a point in January where Ruben Amorim wanted to offload Kobbie for 40 million, bring in Conor Gallagher. Thank goodness that did not happen. I'm obviously really glad that Kobbie is staying and he's been set to stay and sign a new deal. I think as well, Kobbie signing a new deal maybe is suggestion that Carrick's going to be here next season, because I think he wouldn't sign a new deal without knowing who the manager is going to be. And I think if it's going to be Carrick, he's definitely going to sign a new deal because Carrick's giving him every minute. But Romano has confirmed breaking. Kobbie has agreed all terms of a new contract at Manchester United, all set to sign. The agreement will be valid until June 2031 with an increased salary, as always reported, So the first of 4 essential midfield deals has been agreed this summer. And I am very, very happy with that, because I think getting Kobbie Mainoo tied down was really important. There was a point in January where a lot of this fan base wanted Kobbie sold because Amorim didn't rate him and he didn't start a single game under Amorim in the league. His first start in the league was that win against Man City, which is actually mad to think. But there's a point where a lot of people in the fan base wanted him gone because he played a few games under Amorim and he was a bit hit and miss. But if you're not playing for a few months and then you get thrown in, and also whenever he played under Amorim, he'd come on for like Casemiro and it'd be like unbalanced midfield. You know, he was a little bit inconsistent at times. But like now all of a sudden he's got regular minutes, he started playing more, and he's put in like 3-4 phenomenal performances in a row. The last 2 performances were brilliant, and we're seeing the Kobbie we saw under Ten Hag. We're seeing that potential. We saw it under Ten Hag. Amarin came in. We kind of lost Kobbie for a year under Amarin, and it was frustrating because I was like, why don't we just move Bruno further up and play Kobbie and Casemiro together? You know, Bruno is a bit of a liability deeper. And Carrick's come in and he's moved Bruno further up, and Bruno's numbers have been ridiculous the second half of the season. Look at the levels Bruno's hit. He's played Kobbie over Agate, and look at our win rate. You know, Carrick's got a 75% win rate. Amarin had what, 33% win rate. It's made a huge difference, and that's not just because Amarin ignored Kobbie, but I think Kobbie Mainoo has gone from, you know, being overhyped as a youngster when he first came in under Ten Hag to probably becoming underrated. I always feel like Kobbie Mainoo's become underrated because of the slander he got during the Amarin era. Now, obviously, it's not just about bringing in Mainoo. That's one of 4 deals agreed. Casemiro's leaving, and of course, Agate is set to leave. Manuel Ugarte is expected to leave Manchester United at the end of the season, 90 to 95% likely, with his agent George Mendes already looking at offers. Casemiro is leaving. That means Man United will sign at least 2 midfielders. If we sign 2 midfielders, it would have to be like Elliot Anderson and Bruno Guimaraes. Like, that's the only way I could accept 2 midfielders instead of 3. For me, we need 3 midfielders. I've always said that, so that a million times. Agate leaving makes sense. I tried my best to sort of defend Agate and get behind the Agate signing, but even at the time we signed him, I wasn't sure. I said he's a bit of a liability here, but I tried to get behind it. I tried to get positive. I think Agate played quite well in that little period with Ruud van Nistelrooy, and actually I think the first 2 months under Amarin. But Agate has too many limitations in his game. My fear is we're going to replace him with someone like Edison, who's better than Agate but has similar limitations. But Agate is expected to leave. We're looking for 25 million. Offers are being explored. George Mendes is quite a good agent. So, look, Casemiro's gone. That's a shame. Agate will go. But now we know there's 4 midfield deals to do. We need to get someone that can compete with Mainoo and be more of an 8. Because Mainoo can't play every game if we're in Europe next season. We need somebody that's going to be the Casemiro replacement and someone that's going to be the Agate replacement to back up the Casemiro replacement. And interestingly, we're only looking at 2. I think we need 3. I think we will go for 3. But one name has been linked to us again. Hayden Hackney could even be a potential option for Manchester United should Carrick be named permanent manager. I'm okay with Hayden Hackney as the 3rd option. For me, I've always said the first option needs to be a Tchouaméni, an Anderson, a Tonali type player, yeah? The second option needs to be a Baleba, João Gomez, Mateus Fernandes type player. The third player can be a Hayden Hackney, can be a Stiller, can be a Verbal, could be a Mateus Fernandes, could be a Wharton. I want 2 number 6s, or people that are an 8 that can play as a 6, and then one 8. And Hayden Hackney for me is an 8. I think, look, if you signed Hayden Hackney, Baleba and Tonali, I'd be very happy with that. You know, ideal world, Mateus Fernandes, Anderson, and then I'd say Tchouaméni, Anderson, Mateus Fernandes would probably be the dream 3. I mean, like, if we're being less realistic, a Pedri would be nice, a Vitinha, a João Neves would be nice, but I'm trying to think of names that we've been linked to. But look, I like Hayden Hackney, good player. I'm open to it. Now, obviously, I said earlier in the show, I think Carrick is getting the job. Look, the main reason I think Carrick is getting the job is because I think the only manager you want more than Carrick is Luis Enrique. And I mean, we saw that PSG game. You can't blame anyone for wanting Luis Enrique. I'd get rid of Carrick in a heartbeat for Luis Enrique. And I'm one of the Man United fans that likes Carrick and is happy to keep him on. But Romano said someone internally at Man United is a big fan of Luis Enrique and dreams of him being manager one day. He said someone internally. Surely everyone internally at Man United should dream of Luis Enrique. Surely there isn't someone at Man United thinking, Luis Enrique or Southgate, I'm not sure. Surely everyone at Man United should be thinking, Luis Enrique is the dream. Luis Enrique is the goal. Even if Carrick does well next season, if Luis Enrique goes available on the market, I think it's something you have to explore. I think he's just another level of manager. Now, I think Carrick's going to get the job. Romano was actually asked if Carrick's going to get the job today, and on YouTube he said a few things. He said Carrick's chances of the permanent manager job increases weekly. He says Carrick has a strong relationship with players, and because of the excellent results lately and the fact that we're probably going to get Champions League football, his chances are very strong. Also, he's had a good impact on the dressing room. Bruno likes him, Maguire likes him. He's known for good man management. Romano's practically said, without saying, Carrick's chances are strong. I think with Nagelsmann being with Germany and being difficult to get out his contract, and I think also the fact that the German FA are difficult to deal with, the fact that Enrique set the stay, Tuchel and Ancelotti have no intention of leaving their clubs, De Zerbi is gone. I think the lack of options out there, I think Carrick gets the job. Potentially they look at a Fabregas, potentially they look at Xabi Alonso, but I don't think they are convinced enough by those options. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.